Tatum Riley sat at the end of the long conference table, a concealed smirk hidden beneath the composed exterior she had perfected over the years. Holden Whitaker, the man she'd known as her father all her life, obliviously leaned back in his leather chair and coolly remarked, "I wish you were my son," his tone both wistful and oblivious. Holden's real son, Jackson, Tatum's brother, sat beside him, snorting with a disdainful chuckle and muttering words that Tatum couldn't quite make out. This was the moment Tatum had meticulously orchestrated for years, the confrontation with the very family who had dismissed her as irrelevant. Her heart raced, a blend of exhilaration and nerves thrumming through her veins as she prepared to step out of the shadows she'd inhabited for far too long. They had no idea that the person they had come to for salvation was the very daughter they had callously left behind. Tatum had transformed herself from unwanted child to a successful lawyer, mother, and wife. Her husband, Beckett, and their strong-willed daughter, Finley, were her anchor, her proof that she had built something extraordinary from the ashes of rejection. Born into the Whitaker family in coastal Savannah, Georgia, Tatum was soon overshadowed by Jackson, the golden boy destined to inherit the family legacy. Her parents, Holden and Genevieve Whitaker, made the gut-wrenching decision to abandon her when she was only 6, leaving her at an orphanage with empty promises of a better life. Tatum realized even then that their intentions were self-serving, their narrative twisted to ease their own consciences. The orphanage was harsh. It tested her, shaped her resilience, and awakened a fierce determination to defy the narrative scripted by her family. Education became her refuge and ticket to independence. Tatum excelled academically, pursued scholarships, and eventually graduated magna cum laude from a prestigious law school, determined that her past would not define her future. Becoming an attorney wasn't simply a profession for her, it was an assertion of control over a life once denied. She met Beckett, a gentle soul who brought warmth and stability into her life, and they created a family that reminded her daily of the unconditional love she deserved. Yet, the questions surrounding her abandonment gnawed at her, a persistent echo in the recess of her mind. When Tatum decided to search for her family, she found them prospering. The business empire she had been cast from thriving under her brother's management. Her childhood wounds reopened, though she remained resolute. She learned of their dire circumstances through the grapevine and was astounded when her firm assigned her their struggling case, unaware of her connection to the Whitakers. Taking on their case was a strategic move, an opportunity to confront the specters of her past, not as the forsaken daughter, but as the accomplished woman she had become. Sitting across the table from Holden, she heard him scoff. "Who do you think you are, questioning me like that?" His voice was sharp, challenging, his eyes narrowing as if testing her resolve. Tatum met his gaze with unwavering calmness, her heart pounding a rhythm of its own behind her resolute exterior. "I'm the person you hired to fix this," she responded, her voice steady, a silent proclamation of the journey from abandoned refuge to empowered warrior. In the quiet hum of the meeting room's fluorescent lights, Tatum Riley leaned forward, her posture commanding yet calm. "In order for me to help," she stated firmly, "I need complete transparency about how this company ended up in its current predicament. Honesty from every person here is non-negotiable." Her eyes scanned the room, meeting resistance head-on. The tension was palpable, like a thick fog settling over the room. Across the table, Jackson Whitaker let out a condescending laugh, shaking his head dismissively. Typical, he muttered disdainfully. "We're expected to lay everything bare for someone who doesn't even grasp the complexities of an enterprise like this." Holden Whitaker, her father, exhaled a deep, weary sigh, his fingers rubbing his temples out of frustration. "We don't need lectures, Tatum. What we need are results," he said, his tone clipped with impatience. "We've squandered enough time already." Though his words stung, Tatum's composure didn't falter. Years of practice had made her a master at maintaining her poise, especially when so much was at stake. "Then allow me to do what you hired me for," she replied with authority. "That's the only way your company stands a chance of survival." Holden's eyes narrowed slightly, yet he gestured for her to carry on. Opening the folder in front of her, Tatum quickly reviewed the documents she had meticulously studied. "Let's begin with the lawsuits," she stated, adopting a businesslike tone. "You're currently embroiled in numerous legal disputes, contract breaches, unpaid invoices, and accusations of unsafe working conditions at several sites. This negligence exposes you to potential damages worth millions." Jackson leaned back, a dismissive smirk crossing his face. "Those claims are blown out of proportion," he sneered. "We've managed worse before." Tatum met his gaze with unyielding resolve. Exaggerated or not, they're real and pose significant danger. Unpaid invoices have creditors ready to drag you to court. As for unsafe conditions, one complaint alleges serious injuries on a construction site. Proper oversight could have prevented this. If pursued, this case could annihilate the company's reputation. Holden shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but remained silent, prompting Tatum to continue. "The contracts are another mess. Many are so poorly drafted that they're wide open to misinterpretation. Your team has failed at maintaining fundamental terms like payment schedules and delivery timelines. Such oversight bleeds not just funds, but trust." With cautious curiosity edging out defensiveness, Holden asked, "And what would you advise we do?" The sharpness in his voice had dulled slightly, replaced by a genuine desire to understand. "I suggest immediate damage control," Tatum responded. "Firstly, settle the most pressing lawsuits out of court. It will sting financially, but it's better than the cost of a full trial. Secondly, audit all active contracts, rewriting those that bear vulnerabilities. Finally, establish robust compliance protocols to avert future infractions. Another lawsuit, like the ongoing injury case, could be fatal to recovery." Her proposal hung in the air as Holden pondered her words. Jackson, less gracefully, remarked, "That's a hefty amount of damage control, with a skull. And a fair chunk of change." But Tatum's resolve was steady. Damage control is the last viable option. Do this right, and you'll stop the bleeding by time to rejuvenate. Later that night, after tucking little Finley into bed, Tatum sat at the kitchen table, a cup of cooling tea before her. The gentle hum of the dishwasher hummed in the background. Beckett joined her, concern lacing his expression. "Rough day?" he asked softly. Tatum exhaled, meeting his caring gaze. "It's more tangled than I anticipated," she admitted, knowing the complexity was more than financial. Beckett listened attentively as she explained, "They don't know who I am, Beckett. My father and brother are unaware that the lawyer tasked with saving their company is the daughter they discarded years ago. Sitting there, maintaining this facade as just another professional feels," she hesitated, searching for the right word, murky ethically. "It's like deception, even if strings aren't being pulled." "You're not deceiving them," Beckett reassured, his voice soothing and thoughtful. "You're doing the job they need, but more importantly, you're defining the person you've become, not who they left behind." Tatum felt a swirling storm of doubt within as she looked at Beckett across the kitchen table. His calming presence seemed to contrast sharply with her inner turmoil. "Am I actually helping them?" she mused aloud, "or is this just my attempt to prove something to myself about them?" She ran a hand through her hair, the gesture almost a ritual at this point, seeking any clarity in the tangled web of emotions. Beckett reached over, gently clasping her hand, his steady confidence reassuring. "Tatum, it's okay to feel conflicted," he said. "What's important is staying true to yourself. You've always strived for what's right, even when it's tough. If anyone can handle this situation, it's you." A small smile warmed Tatum's face, though the weight of the decision she faced wasn't so easily lifted. "I just don't want to lose myself in this process," she whispered, feeling the fears that lurked beneath her resolve. "You won't," Beckett replied firmly, his commitment unshakable. "No matter what, I'm here, right by your side." The morning after, Tatum found herself back in the office, the echoes of last night's conversation still present in her mind. She braced herself for the impending meeting with her father, Holden, and her brother, Jackson. As she expected, they strode in late, voices low in mild disagreement. Holden wore his signature stern expression, while Jackson appeared smug, as though he had already concluded she was a waste of their time. With a professional composure, Tatum welcomed them, her voice even as she presented the agenda. "Before we delve into details, there's a lawsuit we must discuss urgently," she announced, flipping open a file. "A contractor is pursuing damages for breach of contract, threatening to sink the entire company if it proceeds to trial." Holden's face hardened. "That claim is groundless," he retorted sharply. "We've handled pushy contractors before who always try to overreach." With respect, Tatum countered firmly, "The evidence is compelling. You're facing signed agreements, email communications, and overdue payments that validate their claims. Avoiding settlement risks not just the lawsuit, but also your professional reputation." Jackson rolled his eyes dismissively. "So your strategy is just to settle by throwing money at them?" "I'm advocating a settlement to avoid greater damage," Tatum replied, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. "Dragging this out only worsens the financial hit and your reputation." Holden sighed in frustration. "And what's this settlement going to cost us?" His tone was steeped in skepticism. Sliding a meticulously drafted document across the table, Tatum said, "Here's a preliminary offer. It should satisfy the contractor while minimizing the financial burden. It's not perfect, but under these circumstances, it's the wisest option." Jackson snatched the document, scanning it with a sneer. "This is absurd. We're paying them, yet they miss deadlines too." "Jackson," she said with a calm firmness, steadying her resolve, "this isn't about fairness. It's about practicality. Going to court could cost twice as much as this settlement, not to mention the impact on your already delicate reputation." Holden rubbed his temples, the gesture betraying his contemplation. "And what about the other lawsuits?" he inquired, the fight seemingly sapped from his tone. Taking a breath, Tatum prepared for the response. "There are 3 more cases. 2 can be settled similarly, but one involves a workplace injury and could escalate if tried in court, leading to substantial damages and a PR disaster. I recommend using a mediator to reach a swift resolution." Jackson scoffed, tossing the document back, unimpressed. "You make it sound like we're on the verge of collapse." "That's because you are," Tatum stated plainly, meeting his glare with metal. "Ignoring these problems will leave nothing but memories of what once was." Later, immersed in the soothing quiet of home, Tatum cradled Finley, her daughter's tiny hand gripping her finger tightly. Memories flooded back, the images of cold walls in the orphanage, nights spent clutching her blanket, yearning for the warmth of her mother's arms. The haunting sound of footsteps echoed in Tatum's mind, a phantom memory of a past she wanted to bury but couldn't escape. She often replayed the moment her mother walked away from the orphanage, promises hanging in the air like shattered glass. "This is for the best," her mother had whispered, her voice trembling with false assurance, avoiding Tatum's eyes. Her father didn't even have the courage to stand there, letting his pride hide his absence. The memory of that door closing, sealing her cry in the cold hallway, was etched deep in her being. Now, as Tatum looked at her daughter, nestled safely in her arms, the stark contrast between past and present comforted her fragile heart. Finley's gentle breaths were a lifeline, grounding her in the promise of what she could provide. She vowed silently that Finley would never feel the sting of invisibility, the feeling of being discarded like she once did. Tatum was determined to be the anchor she never had. Over the following weeks, Tatum noticed subtle changes in how her father, Holden, interacted with her during the meetings. The sharp lines in his demeanor softened, his habitual disdain replaced by a cautious respect. He started to listen, nodding at her legal strategies, occasionally engaging with sincere curiosity. It was peculiar, unsettling even, to witness this evolving dynamic while simultaneously watching his patience with Jackson wear thin. Every dismissive interruption from Jackson seemed to fray Holden's temper further, causing him to cut his son off mid-sentence or shoot a glare that needed no words. During a particularly tense negotiation about contract disputes, Holden snapped at Jackson, "If you'd paid attention to the details from the beginning, we wouldn't be in this chaos." Tatum observed, hesitant to draw attention to the shifting winds between them. The irony of their newfound respect for her wasn't lost, yet she knew this wasn't the moment for revelations. Tatum concentrated on her work, watching as Holden gradually began to rely more on her judgment than Jackson's increasingly defensive remarks. The once solid alliance between father and son displayed noticeable cracks. She buried herself in the mission, maintaining her professionalism and letting the situation unfold naturally. Their next meeting presented another revelation when Holden met her with a smile, a rare gesture she had never associated with him. As she presented updates on the ongoing lawsuits, he expressed unexpected praise, saying, "That's a good strategy." The comment caught Tatum off guard, but she remained composed, her exterior unchanged while inside she battled a wave of emotion. Throughout the meeting, Holden's observations grew more personal, a glimpse of something deeper slipping through. "You're sharp," he noted, almost to himself, as Tatum explained her mediation approach. "Methodical. You remind me of someone." Her heart skipped a beat, unsure of where this was headed. He leaned back, exhaling heavily. "Your foresight, your attention to detail. It reminds me of my wife." She could see through the noise and find clarity. "She passed last year. She would have liked you." The mention of her mother struck Tatum like an unseen blow, the room seeming to constrict around her. Her mother, the very woman who had broken every promise, who had never returned. Knowing she had vanished, leaving questions unanswered, made Tatum's chest swell with a pain she had long forgotten. The urge to unmask the truth churned within her, to unravel the charade she'd maintained. Yet, as ever, she restrained herself, nodding politely. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice a pillar despite the storm inside. That evening, as Beckett tucked Finley in, Tatum found herself staring at the television, its images lost on her distracted thoughts. Beckett joined her, placing a mug of steaming tea beside her, watching her with that familiar, understanding gaze. Tatum sat silently on the couch, a muted storm of emotion swirling around her. The evening had descended quietly, yet her mind buzzed with unspoken thoughts. Beckett, seated beside her, noticed her preoccupation and asked gently, "Tatum, what's on your mind?" His voice a soft anchor, bringing her back from the tempest of feelings within. She took a deep breath, fingers wrapped tightly around the mug of steaming tea. "Dad brought up Mom today," she began, her voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. "He said I remind him of her, that she would have liked me." Her gaze dropped, weighed by revelation. Beckett raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "How does that sit with you?" he asked tenderly. "It's overwhelming," Tatum confessed, shaking her head slowly. "Not just because he mentioned it, but because she's gone. I didn't even know until now. The questions I'll never get to ask her, why she left, why she didn't fight for me, it's all too much." And hearing Dad talk about her like she was a saint, the words hung in the air between them, heavy and unresolved. Beckett reached over, his hand warm and reassuring on hers. "It's understandable to feel what you're feeling," he said softly. "You've held on to this hurt for so long, and now it's rising up in unexpected ways. But Tatum, you don't need their answers. Look at the life you've carved out without them." Tatum managed a faint smile, appreciating his unwavering support. "You're right," she said quietly, though thoughts lingered. "But part of me wonders if hearing more about her will change how I remember her, or if any of it matters now." Beckett gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "Whatever happens, you'll handle it with the strength and grace you always do." His words settled around her like a protective shield. A couple of months passed, and Tatum could see the undeniable transformation. The avalanche of lawsuits had been contained, contracts reconsidered, and operations brought back from the brink of chaos. The firm began to find its footing, employees visibly more at ease. By the time the final meeting rolled around, Tatum felt a quiet pride blooming inside her. Walking into the conference room, she was met by her father, Holden, and her brother, Jackson, their expressions no longer the bastions of hostility. Holden even stood briefly, a gesture so alien that it caught Tatum off balance. "Well," Holden said, clearing his throat awkwardly as Tatum sat down, "I think we owe you a debt of thanks for all your efforts." Though her father struggled over the words, Tatum sensed the sincerity buried within them. Across the table, Jackson crossed his arms, his demeanor less appreciative. "Let's not overdo it," he grumbled, avoiding eye contact. We're not in the clear yet. Tatum shrugged off the dismissive remark, focused on the task at hand. No, you're not, she agreed calmly, arranging the final set of documents. But you've been given a fighting chance now. Stay on this path, avoid past mistakes, and you can pull through. Holden nodded, determination clear. We will. This company is everything to us. He spoke with a conviction that hadn't been there before. Tatum paused, watching the man who once abandoned her share a moment of humility and recognition. Good, said Tatum simply. Then my work here is complete. As she began to collect her things, Jackson leaned back, his habitual smirk reappearing. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes, he muttered with disdain. The comment hung in the air until Holden's voice sliced through the tension. Enough, Jackson, he roared, slamming his hand on the table. The sudden anger in his voice made both siblings turn in surprise, his face a mask of restrained frustration. Jackson faltered, his bravado crumbling under his father's glare. Holden's expression softened as he turned to Tatum, an emotion unfamiliar yet earnest in his eyes. I wish you were my son, he confessed, his voice hushed but clear in its intent. Stunned into silence, Tatum felt the weight of her father's words echo in the room, tinged with years of unspoken truth. She met Holden's gaze, her hands trembling slightly at the realization. Here was the moment she had envisioned countless times, the culmination of a lifetime of waiting. Slowly rising from her seat, Tatum drew from the reservoir of courage she'd been building. She steadied her voice, though it was thick with emotion. I'm not your son, she replied firmly, reality crashing down between them. You forfeited that chance long ago. The sheer gravity of the revelation hit Holden like a tidal wave, leaving him speechless. His daughter, the same one he'd thought was lost to time, now stood before him, unraveling years of silence in a room that had become a battlefield of truth. Though he opened his mouth to speak, no words found their way out. The realization weighed heavily upon him, penetrating the space with palpable tension. Tatum stood tall, her voice unwavering as she continued, You forfeited any claim to being my father the day you left me at that orphanage. Holden's face blanched, as if her words had stripped away a veneer that had masked a lifetime of regrets. Jackson, her brother, witnessed the unraveling with an expression of pure bewilderment etched into his features. The dam had burst, and she let the flood pour forth, emotions fueling every word. You didn't even have the courage to say goodbye yourself. You left Mom to carry out your decision, a decision that shattered a child begging to be taken home. You never looked back, not once. The words came unbidden, pooling at Holden's feet like a river of unhealed pain. With a deep, shuddering breath, Tatum found fresh resolve. You tossed me aside as if I didn't matter. I grew up haunted by the question of why I wasn't worth the fight. And now, after all those years, you sit here across from me, pleading for rescue for the very company you chose over me. Silence fell as Holden gripped the edge of the table, an unsettling shame settling in his eyes for the first time. Jackson's confusion turned introspective as he struggled to piece together her bombshell revelation. You have no idea who I am, do you? Tatum asked, her voice a crescendo of disbelief and fury. What are you talking about? Jackson stammered, defensively. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, shaking her head in disbelief. Of course, they never told you. They kept you in the dark about the sister they discarded. Her stance straightened, a newfound calm sweeping over her. I didn't save your company for you or for Jackson. I did it to prove that I am more than what was done to me, that I am greater than the people who left me behind. Holden shifted, looking as if he wanted to interject, but Tatum raised a hand, silencing him. We're done here, she stated firmly. Whatever thread of connection might have tied us has snapped. You severed that bond long ago. Turning to Jackson, she met his astonished gaze. I'm not angry at you, Jackson. You were kept in the dark. But now you know, and you have the chance to break the cycle, to be better. Just don't expect me to witness it. Jackson seemed lost, his brash demeanor smoothed away, leaving him in uncharted waters. But Tatum knew her journey with them had reached its conclusion. She faced Holden one last time, her tone softer yet resolute. At least I learned something invaluable from all of this. You showed me exactly the person I never want to become. For that, perhaps, I owe you my thanks." With that, she gathered her belongings and left them, her resolve echoing in the silence of the room as she exited to face a future free from the shadows of their choices. That evening, letting the warmth of her home envelop her, Tatum nestled beside her daughter, Finley, who clutched her hand with a sleepy grip. Beckett handed her a mug of hot chocolate, complete with a swirl of whipped cream melting at the top. The serenity of her family filled the space she had reclaimed from the past. "I'm proud of you," Beckett murmured beside her, his eyes filled with warmth. Tatum glanced down at Finley, the piece on her daughter's face a testament to the battles she had fought and won. "I'm proud of me too," she replied, a quiet triumph in her smile. For the first time, Tatum felt the full embrace of liberation.